Yes, no, I think that we've got a general sense of Sir Stephen's position being that you have to be pragmatic, and it doesn't matter if you contravene international law or human rights law or whatever, because
he didn't say that. I mean, that's
well,
a little bit one-sided.
He's made it very clear that he thinks that crushing the demand is an essential part of doing this.
I take it Baroness Helena Kennedy of the Shores is not a Sir Stephen Laws fan. Told you was getting it both barrels in this committee meeting. Well, the topic was all about this Bill of Rights, where people who have been detained, been unable to have the right to appeal, and I'll start with letting Baroness Kennedy start it off with a bit of a long-winded statement, because she says something quite powerful and very true. So enjoy.
I want us to go back to what the substance of this question was about. It was about the fact that it wouldn't be possible for somebody who has been detained under this bill to actually challenge it in any way through the courts. That is removing what would normally be possible, which is that liberty is one of the great things that we hold dear in this nation, whoever you are. And that was what habeas corpus was built on. You know, you have a body in detention. There has to be an opportunity of that person saying, I shouldn't have my liberty taken away. And a court should be the place that decides that. And what is happening here is that there's going to be an ouster of the opportunity of challenging the decision to detain. And I mean, we can argue about whether that is at all appropriate, but I'm going to ask both of you, do you think it's compliant with the European Convention on Human Rights that someone cannot challenge through the courts a detention and a removal of their liberty in that way? I mean, for the most incredible criminal cases, you can apply for bail. Homicide cases, terrorism cases. I mean, we give people the opportunity to do that. They might be refused, but they...
Boom. Very true. So why do people who just want to come here to escape persecution or war and make their lives better are treated this way, any different?
They have the opportunity. Here, the opportunity is being removed.
Yeah, I agree this is extremely serious. I don't see how it's compatible with international human rights law. And again, it's not only about the European Convention on Human Rights, it's also about the ICCPR and a whole range of other human rights instruments, which permit some detention of irregular arrivals in order to prevent effectuation of irregular entry, but under very limited conditions. And I don't think those limited conditions are met anyway. And if on top of how sweeping the detention power is on, we have a lack of judicial scrutiny, I think that just exacerbates the human rights violation that's being contemplated.
I mean, before I take it over to Sir Stephen, I wanted just to say that the bill removes current time limits for detaining women and children, and there's always been a special concern about detaining, especially children. And I wanted to ask, is that compatible with the UK's human rights obligations? For example, under Article 5, the right to liberty, Article 8, the right to respect for private and family life. I mean, maybe you think that that's all for the birds, Sir Stephen. I don't know. Do you?
I think, first of all, I think that Parliament has the ability to pass this bill if it wants to. Secondly, I think that there needs to be a practical solution which is at the moment being thwarted by the legal system for what is a serious problem.
Lefty lawyers, I think.
In the Channel. And I think if... I wish there were other solutions. I would like to hear what they are. Because what I think I have been hearing is that the government is prevented from, by international law, from seeking to solve this problem. Now, that cannot be right. It's a serious problem. It's not one that
No.
Well,
the question is this the proper solution? It's not about finding a solution. The government can find a solution and shouldn't be prevented from doing that. It's a question of whether this is one that contravenes so many issues of law and rights that have been acknowledged by our country over its signature to many treaties, conventions, and our own law that we've introduced into the United Kingdom. It's very serious.
What I would say is that I am not in favour of us withdrawing from the European Convention on Human Rights, but I am in favour of us being able to come up with solutions to the problems we've got, and for those points to go to the European Convention on Human Rights, to the Court of Human Rights, for them to decide what they think of them. And in order to do that, we need to exclude our domestic human rights regimes, because we know that the Strasbourg Court is responsive to political pushback, and the only way we can find out what we can do is to go to the European Court of Human Rights with what we would like to do, and see whether we can then discover what it is we can do and what would work. But I don't think it's enough to say, we don't like this solution, the government must think of another one. If you want the government to think of another one, come up with what they could do that would work.
Hang on.
Let's be honest, how many times have you heard Tories say this? Well, if you don't like this one, you come up with a solution. How about a processing plant in France so they can be processed there? France have said to do it. And maybe stop trying to shit on people's human rights. That's probably another start as well, isn't it?
And
I
would support that.
But this committee's role is to scrutinise the legislation for its human rights compliance. Yeah. We don't really have the wherewithal as the Joint Committee on Human Rights to come up with a solution. I see what you're saying, Sir Stephen, but what we're here to do is see whether the solution the government have come up with is human rights compliant. And I think you're saying it very well may not be, but we need to leave it to the Strasbourg Court to decide that.
Yes.
Thanks. I'm afraid we're going to have to try and wind up the session now because we've got another evidence session. Helena, did you want to... Are you happy with that?
Yes, no, I think that we've got a general sense of Sir Stephen's position being that you have to be pragmatic, and it doesn't matter if you contravene international law or human rights law or whatever, because
he didn't say that. I mean,
well,
that's a little bit one-sided.
He's made it very clear that he thinks that crushing the demand is an essential part of doing this.
Yes, I know, but I think we need to discuss this as a committee when we come to write our report, because we're in danger of losing our quorum for our second panel, and we've got somebody here from UNHCR, and I don't...
That'll be interesting, but never mess with Baroness Kennedy. She's a bit of a firebrand, isn't she? And I totally agree with everything she said. With what she said at the end, I agree. I think he was saying that. And liberty we hold dear is very true, isn't it? We do. And as far as I'm concerned, our human rights is for everybody, not just for some people whose rights are more important than others. It shouldn't be like that. All should be the same. And like as she said, some of the most serious crimes in court, even the perpetrators are given the opportunity for bail. They might not get it, but they're given the opportunity. And I'm not surprised that Professor Catheryn Costello agreed with, but Sir Stephen Laws, absolutely weird, wasn't it? Talking about human rights, as Baroness Kennedy, as she put it, you think it's for the birds, and you got the feeling that's exactly what he was saying, but at the same time that he's not one for wanting to leave the European Court of Human Rights, but thinks they're vulnerable to political pushback and seem to be saying, let's see how far we can go and we may be able to bend their will because we're British, God damn it. Whoa! But I'm not in favour of leaving it, whatever is on. Then it goes to the usual Tory drivel of saying, well, if you don't like what we're doing at the moment, why don't you come up with some suggestions? Well, there are better suggestions, just maybe not trying to destroy people's human rights, but because, like, as I said, some other people's rights in his eyes are far more important than others. But I agree with Baroness Kennedy with her last statement, like, as I said, and you can tell she got some pushback, didn't you? But what do you guys think? let me know down below. And have a lovely weekend and take care. Hopefully see you on Max's channel tonight. And if I do, say hi. So have a good weekend and take care, my friends.